Do, do, do. Are you invested? Do you wonder what these little wasps are up to? These angels? Let's see if I can do something real quick. Okay. Chapter 3. I waited 3 days before I told Mom about the dream. I wasn't going to at first because I had a lot of weird dreams and sometimes they seemed to worry her. So I stopped telling her. I didn't want her to worry. I didn't want her to think I was a freak. But today she was looking so tired as she fed the baby that I thought this one dream might make her feel better. She smiled when I told it, but it was a wistful smile. You always have the most interesting dreams, she said. Maybe it means that things will be okay. When I was little, she and Dad had sometimes gone to church, but they pretty much stopped a few years ago. The occasional Easter or Christmas. We just didn't talk about God or anything. Nicole blessed people at night, but she must have gotten that from Mom or Dad. But Mom also read her horoscope every day, which she said was just for fun, so I don't think she took it too seriously. Once I heard her say there was more than us in the universe, but I didn't know what she meant by that exactly. Aliens? Some kind of supernatural force, maybe? I don't know if she believed in God, though. All I knew was that this dream made me feel better. Waking up from it, I just felt happier. It happens sometimes. A dream that casts some kind of hopeful light into the night of your daytime. I'm going to reread that sentence because it was a weird one. It happens sometimes, a dream that casts a kind of hopeful light from the night into daytime. Mom was feeding the baby from a bottle. She tried to breastfeed him, but he wasn't very good at nursing. Something about the mouth muscles not being strong enough. Afterward, the baby was sleepy, and Mom put him back in the crib. When I looked at the baby, here's what I saw. A baby. He looked pretty normal to me. Ugly like a turtle, his neck all wrinkly, tight little red fist. Nicole looked like that when she was born, and I'd look the same too in pictures. Here's what the baby could do. He slept a lot. He made funny faces, he kicked his arms and legs, he stuck out his tongue, he cried. He made pterodactyl sounds. He was a really noisy gulper. Sometimes he sputtered and choked and Mom patted him on the back. He gripped your little finger with his fist and he looked at bright lights. He looked past you. And sometimes right at you. Sometimes his eyes were half open. Sometimes they were wide open and bright and curious. He kicked his skinny little legs and stuck out with both of his arms at nothing at all. But when I looked at the baby, mostly what I thought of was all the things I couldn't see. All the things that were going wrong inside of him. I felt stupid having a babysitter. I didn't need one. Now, Nicole did, but I didn't want to have to look after her all the times that Mom and Dad were at work or taking the baby to appointments. Her name was Vanessa, and she was a zoology student at the university. She was taking a course over the summer, and the rest of the time she worked for us. Excuse me. She spoke very calmly, and sometimes I wished she'd talk faster. I got impatient waiting for her to finish sentences. She lived in a basement apartment a few streets over. Her clothes had this musty, scalpy smell. Nicole really liked her. She said Vanessa was really good at playing castle and talking about bugs and horses. I was inside watching TV, where it was air-conditioned and there were no wasps. Dad had showed Vanessa my new EpiPen and where it would be kept in the medicine cabinet of the downstairs bathroom. Sliding through the patio doors, I could see the backyard. Through the sliding patio doors, I could see the backyard. Vanessa was on the deck. She walked to the table and poured a drink of lemonade for Nicole, who was on the swings. Then Vanessa stared at the wooden table and kept staring. Her look was so intense that it made my skin crawl. I went to the door and I cracked it open. "What's the matter?" "Shh." Without looking up, she waved me over. She nodded. There was a big wasp on the table. It's another one of those really cool pictures. So you can't see it very well, but up here is a wasp. There's the lemonade on the table, and that's the sliding glass door. It had pale markings, like the one that had stung me just a few days before. "I've never seen one like this," she said. "It's not a yellow jacket," I told her. "Or a hornet." She seemed genuinely curious. "Maybe it's an albino, but it's definitely a social wasp, a nester." "How do you know?" "Look what it's doing." The wasp was scraping its head along the surface of the table, and there was this very faint clicking sound. "You see its mandibles?" she whispered. "Why is it eating the wood?" "Not eating it. The adults eat nectar." "So what is it doing?" "Collecting it." Behind the wasp, I saw a pale line where the surface had been scraped off. It takes a little bit of the wood fiber, mixes it with its own saliva, and then regurgitates it. "Why?" "To build a nest." "Oh, look, there it goes." I took a step backwards as the wasp lifted off and rose into the air. Almost in the next moment, another insect landed on the table. And it took me a second to realize that it was actually two bugs. The one on the top was a big silvery wasp, and it was clutching a dead spider beneath it. The spider was bigger than the wasp, and it took the wasp a couple of tries to lift it again. Slowly, like an airplane with heavy cargo, it rose into the air with its kill, slewing off in the same direction as the first wasp. My breakfast slapped greasily against the inside of my stomach. "Looks like you've got a nest nearby," Vanessa said, holding her hand to the eyes as she tracked the wasp. It was up high now and didn't seem interested in stinging me. So I followed Vanessa as she walked along the side of our house, past Dad's favorite Japanese maple, and we tilted our heads way back. "See it?" she asked. "Way up there?" Under the eaves, right at the peak of the roof, was a tiny semi-spherical ball. A few shapes moved around on the outside, and our wasp disappeared inside. It's all different fibers from trees or plants or wooden tables. That's why the nest can have several different shades. "It just looks like a kind of gray," I said. I looked more closely at the wooden post of our fence, and everywhere I saw these little white lines. The wasps were eating our fence and table to make their nest. "It's amazing," Vanessa said. "They're amazing little architects and engineers." "I'm allergic," I had to remind her. "I know exactly where your EpiPen is," she responded. The nest was above and to the right of the baby's room. From down the street came the sound of a bell ringing, and Nicole ran over, looking all excited. "It's the knife guy!" She bolted into the house so she could watch him from the door. Nicole was fascinated by him. He'd started coming around this summer. He drove this strange, stubby van without doors, slowly ringing a bell to see if anyone needed their knives sharpened. Vanessa and I followed Nicole through the house. My little sister threw open the front door, and stood on the porch waiting. It's so weird how excited she got about the knife guy. On the side of the van were lots of faded pictures of knives, and in big, crooked, hand-painted letters, the word Rindy G. Because on the end, the N had worn out. Grinding without the N. The van glided toward us. I didn't know how he made any money. I never saw one single person stop him and rush all out with their knives. Last month, before the baby was born, Dad flagged him down, and I think it was just to give Nicole a thrill. Nicole had stood with us at the curb of the van. I'm stuttering all over the place this time. Nicole had stood with us at the curb as the van pulled over, and the knife guy stepped out with his coveralls. Before, I just glimpsed him in passing. He was an older guy, surprisingly tall, a bit stooped. His cheeks were hollowed out, and he had gray stubble for hair. He looked like his bones were meant for a bigger body. Dad had dragged his rotary lawnmower out from the garage. The blades, I guess, were getting pretty dull, he said, and he asked the knife guy if he would sharpen them. The knife guy gave a shrug, pursed his lips, and made this sound. We didn't know if he was saying yes or no. But he went into the back of his van and came out with a screwdriver and removed the mower blades, one by one. Nicole watched everything, enthralled. The knife guy smiled at her as he took the blades from the lawnmower, and he let her watch from the open back of the van as he sharpened them on a grinding stone. It wasn't until the end, when he was putting the blades back onto the mower, that I noticed his hands. They were very large, and he had big knuckles, but he also only had 4 fingers on each hand, and they were kind of weirdly shaped and splayed so that they looked like pinchers. Afterwards, Nicole said to Dad, "I guess he's not very good at his job." "What do you mean?" Dad asked. "He cut off his own fingers?" Dad laughed. "He didn't cut them off, sweetie. He was born like that. I knew someone once that had the same condition." "Oh," said Nicole. "Anyway, didn't seem to slow him down, and he did it." Dad ran the mower over a patch of lawn, and grass clippings just flew up, leaving this clean lake. "Much better," Dad said. Now, as Vanessa and I watched the van approach, Nicole looked up imploringly. "Can we bring him out some knives?" "I'm not sure that your parents would want that, Nicole," Vanessa said. "We have to ask them first." She said, "Okay." As the van crawled alongside our house, the knife guy leaned over his steering wheel so that he could peer out. Nicole waved. The knife guy waved back, gave a big smile, and stopped. Maybe he didn't understand that we didn't have anything for him today. I don't think his English is too good. He seemed familiar to me somehow, but not in a good way. "We're okay," I said. "Thank you." "Okay. Thanks you. Okay," he said, and then he rang his bell, and he kept on moving down the street. When he turned the corner, I realized I'd been holding my breath. That night at dinner, Mom and Dad weren't talking much, and when they had come back from the hospital, it looked pretty serious. I was afraid to ask what happened. Nicole didn't even notice. Between mouthfuls of mashed potato and fish sticks, she talked about the castles and metal and her favorite knight and his special skills. Her phone rang under her chair like she was expecting an important call from somebody any moment. "Did Mr. Nobody have any good jokes today?" Dad asked her. Nicole frowned and shook her head. "He wasn't in the joking mood?" "Ah," said Dad. "There's a wasp nest on our house," I said. "Way up high, under the roof." "Really?" Mom said. Vanessa and I saw it. Should we get an exterminator or something? Dad nodded. Yeah, I'll call someone. Mom asked, did you make an appointment for the allergist for Steve? I'll do it tomorrow, Dad said. How's the baby? I asked finally. We have an appointment with a specialist. She's supposed to be very good. One of the people who know about these kinds of things. Nicole said, after that, the baby will be better. Dad smiled. Don't know about that, Nicole. But we'll know more anyway. I was sick when I was born, she said. No, you weren't, Dad replied. Indignantly, Nicole said, yes, I was. I was yellow. Dad sniffed out a laugh. Oh, that's just jaundice. Postnatal jaundice. Lots of babies have it. It clears up in a couple of weeks. Mom looked at Dad. We were worried, though, remember? It seemed worrying at the time. I hate it when her eyes get all wet. It makes me scared. Like she wasn't my mom anymore, but something fragile that might break. After dinner, when Mom was giving Nicole her bath and I was helping Dad clean up the dishes, he said to me, how are you doing, little buddy? I shrugged. Fine. Bit crazy around here? Is the baby gonna die? I asked. He was doing a pretty lousy job at arranging the plates in the dishwasher. Usually he was very particular. No, I don't think so. It's not like that, really. There's just not a lot. There's just a lot. He searched. There's just a lot that's not working like it should. And some of it they can treat, but a lot of it has to do with his level of ability and how he might develop in the future. Whether he'll be low functioning or high functioning. Low functioning? I said. It sounded like something you'd say about a machine, not a person. I know. It's an awful term. I rearranged the baking dish so it wasn't taking up half the rack. So, we're high functioning. He gave a chuckle. Supposedly. Though some days it doesn't feel like that. Does it? I was wondering if he was thinking of me. I definitely felt low functioning sometimes. It has something to do with DNA, doesn't it? I said. He looked at me. That's right. Congenital, I added. It made me feel better to have words, and if knowing the names of things meant that, as if knowing the name to things meant that I had power over them, some kind of power over them. Right. He was born with it. It's very rare, apparently. There aren't a lot of reported cases yet. It only got named a couple of years ago. I was about to ask what the name was, but I didn't. I wasn't sure why. This was a word I didn't want to know until later. Later, when I was going to bed, Mom hugged me and thanked me for being so brave. I'm not brave, I said. I'm sorry we've been away so much. It won't be like this always. I didn't want her to get all teary again, so I said, we should do something about that wasp nest. I don't want to get stung again, and it's pretty close to the baby's room, I added, hoping this would make her take it seriously. We'll take care of it. Do you believe in angels? I asked. She smiled. When I was little, I think I might have, but not now. I don't know that I do, Steve. It's a nice idea, but I don't think so. Before I turned out my bedside light, I went through my to list. First, I read all the things that I was grateful for. And a lot of the time I felt pretty low, and I didn't know why, and I thought this was a good way to remind myself of all the good things in my life. This list has gotten pretty long by now. It's at least 4 pages torn from a notebook. Sometimes I added new things. And the last thing I added was our baby. Next was the list of people that I wanted to keep safe. I didn't know who I was asking. Maybe it was God. maybe I really didn't believe in God, so this wasn't praying exactly. It was a bit like how Nicole blessed people at night. This was me, wanting to make sure that all the people I knew wouldn't get hurt. I started with Mom and Dad and Nicole and the baby, and then went through my grandparents and my uncles and my aunts and my cousins and my friend Brendan and my friend Sanjay. And if I lost my place or started worrying that I'd skipped someone, I would begin at the beginning again, just to make sure. And I always ended it with the baby to make doubly sure that I hadn't forgotten him. Then I turned off the light, pulled the covers over my head, adjusted my breathing hole, and slept.